The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
It's no fun planning a funeral, let alone your own. But learn why planning ahead can save your family a lot of grief. With me today is Craig Williams, General Manager and Funeral Director at McCall's. Welcome, Craig. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, how did you get into this business?
Well, it was, I was actually born into it. Our company was founded by my great-grandfather and his brother in 1921.
Wow.
And then my grandfather and his brother ran it, and now it's owned by my uncle, and my cousin and I, Trevor, represent the fourth generation working for the family firm.
That's incredible. You don't hear that too often today. I know kids often want to follow in their parents' footsteps, but not necessarily in the funeral business. Did you have to do some education?
Yeah, I did. I went to actually a private school in San Francisco in California. That's not a requirement to do it here in BC. They have an apprenticeship program here in our province, but I opted to go and do it privately, and I've been working since 1999 full-time.
So is it like a one-year program, or is it a 4-year degree program?
It's a 2-year associate's degree.
Wow. Okay, so this is intensive stuff.
It was, yes.
So you love what you do?
Very much so.
I think it would be challenging to deal with people's emotions day in and day out.
It obviously, we have our sad moments, but definitely it's a very rewarding job. It's a question I get asked often from friends and new people that I meet. Obviously, as I said, we do have our challenging times, but I get to see how people lived well, and if anything, it's very inspiring.
So it's more of a celebration of life is how people need to look at it.
Absolutely.
What are some of the common myths around funerals and planning for funerals?
I'd say probably the biggest myth is that people think that it's going to cost a fortune when that's not necessarily the case. We have service offerings that can meet anyone's budget. From very affordable to sky's the limit. It's completely up to the individual for whatever fits their family.
So are people just in denial sometimes and just don't want to talk about it? Or are you finding more and more people are starting to think ahead and plan it out in advance?
Well, I definitely am finding on a day-to-day basis, we see a lot of people coming in and at least asking the questions, which we find most important. Education is the key, and we're finding people are getting prepared for the end-of-life issues. You know, there are people prepare for many things in life, whether it's retirement or birthdays or anniversaries, and we're finding people are preparing for the end-of-life issues now as well.
Well, I believe in Murphy's Law, and I always believe that those who are prepared, it's okay. It's when you're not prepared that's when something's going to catch you by surprise.
Definitely.
So what suggestions do you have for people to ensure they get what they want? I mean,
yeah, I think probably the best thing for people to do is actually come in and see us, or at least pick up the phone and have a conversation with us. We can provide them what all their options are and explain and sort of demystify everything just to advise them exactly what's available to them.
So what does an average funeral cost? I know this is a big concern for a lot of people. They think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to put aside, you know, $10,000 or $20,000 or $50,000 or $100,000. And people ask the same question about weddings.
I was just going to say, yeah, that's definitely a question I get asked often. And the answer is a very difficult one, because some people will have a very simple ceremony or no service whatsoever with just a simple cremation. Others will have a traditional funeral mass with a fully catered reception. So, you know, there's services for all different people's needs and budgets.
So on the low end, if someone just says, I don't want anything, you know, next to anything, they just want their body cremated in a cardboard box,
Yep.
It would start out at a low range of...
Around probably $1,500 in that vicinity.
Wow. What's the biggest, most expensive funeral you can think of?
Probably $20,000 15 to 20,000.
Oh, so it's not like 50 and 100,000 as some people
Not like
may
some of the
think.
weddings out there.
People spend way more on that. And you know what? You don't even get any guarantees with the wedding, but death is a guarantee for all of us, unfortunately.
That's right.
So do you think that pre-planning your own funeral is important?
I think it's hugely important. And again, one of the myths, people think that there's a huge cost involved. Well, when it comes to pre-planning, it doesn't have to cost a thing. At the very least, people can put their wishes down on paper and understand or explain what it is that they exactly want. And we can have a file in place so when the time comes, we know what their wishes are, and it sort of alleviates not only the financial burden if they choose to prepay on the family, but the emotional overspending that can happen when families are trying to make these major decisions when they're going through a very difficult time.
Don't put your family through that. I mean, families are grieving enough right at the end of life. They don't want to make a lot of those decisions. So do your family a favor and plan ahead, I think is what you're saying.
It is a gift for sure.
Should people prepay as well or wait?
Well, that's entirely up to the family. The benefit of prepaying for the services in advance is it guarantees it at today's cost. So it locks it in at today's prices. So it doesn't matter if it's 20, 30, 40 years from now, whatever our charges are at that time. It's irrelevant because it guarantees it at today's prices.
What's involved in pre-arranging your own funeral?
Well, there's a few important steps that we take. Firstly, we would compile some vital statistical information. This is information that the province requires for registration of death purposes here in BC.
Of course, there's always paperwork.
There's always the paperwork. And then we would talk about the different service offerings, so whether there's going to be a celebration of life, a memorial service, a funeral service, or no service. We'd talk about those details as well as different ways that we can sort of memorialize or personalize the services to make it more meaningful for the families. That might look like talking about slideshows or celebration of life video tributes, or the type of sandwiches that they would like served at the tea. Those kind of details, we can get right down to that.
Do you find people actually enjoy talking about that at the time? Do they disassociate from what it really means?
I think so. Usually the first 5 or 10 minutes, people don't like to come in and see me at work, unfortunately. But I understand. It's one of those things. But yes, it's definitely a rewarding job.
So it works out in the end. Well, Craig, thank you so much for spending the time today. I know I learned a lot more that I didn't know.